Russia would turn Britain into an uninhabitable wasteland if Vladimir Putin decided to launch a nuclear attack. Cold War predictions drawn up in secret by the British government reveal the extent of a Russian nuclear strike on the United Kingdom. At least 38 towns and cities were feared to be at risk from a strike from the Soviet Union, along with dozens of Army, Navy, and Air Force bases. Russia has a nuclear stockpile second to none in the world, outstripping that even of the US. And Russian President Putin has made no secret of the fact he is willing to use nukes, even unveiling his latest invincible weapons in February. Relations have now reached new lows between Russia and Britain over the poisoning of MI6 double agent Sergei Skripal. Daily Star Online can reveal nuclear targets which Russia had in their sights ahead of a brewing new Cold War. Defense officials compiled a list of some 106 locations which they believed Russia was ready to strike, marking them probable nuclear targets. The plan was signed off by the Prime Minister's office under Edward Heath. And chillingly it noted this was not believed by the every target the Russians would attack in a general war. Spooks predicted a barrage of up 150 nuclear missiles falling on the United Kingdom, along with an unknown number of nukes launches from submarines. This is all according to declassified documents held by the National Archives. UK towns and cities listed: Central London, Cheltenham, Edinburgh, Nottingham, Teesside, Coventry, Wolverhampton, Leicester, Stoke-on-Trent, Belfast, Huddersfield, Sunderland, Gillingham, Rochester, Chatham, Maidstone, Glasgow, Birmingham, Liverpool, Cardiff, Manchester, Southampton, Leeds, Newcastle/Gateshead, Bristol, Sheffield, Swansea, Hull, Catterick, York, Preston, Cambridge, Dover, Reading, Salcombe, Brecon, Kidderminster, Armagh. Alongside these major population centers were 23 RAF bases, 14 U.S. Air Force bases, 10 radar stations, 8 military command centers, and 13 Royal Navy bases. These simulations are likely to have changed since the Cold War. But it still offers a chilling insight to the extent of devastation Britain faces in a nuclear war. Russia currently has a strategic nuclear arsenal of 4,500 warheads, with a total stockpile of 7,500. The biggest nuke ever tested by Russia is the thermonuclear Tsar Bomba, with a theoretical explosive yield of up to 100 megatons of TNT. One of these nukes dropped on London would kill nearly 6 million people, with the blast felt as far away as Watford, Slough, and Sevenoaks. Meanwhile, the fallout would engulf Bedford, Southend, Reading, and stretch as far south as Brighton. Luckily it was never tested at this full yield, only being detonated at 50 megatons, and only being detonated once. Moscow's row with Britain remains diplomatic for the moment, with the two sides going tit for tat over the poisoning of Skripal and his daughter Yulia. The 66-year-old had sold secrets to MI6 while working for Russian intelligence, and was traded to the United Kingdom in 2010 after being imprisoned by the Kremlin. Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson accused Putin of personally ordering the attack on Skripal. Russia has rubbished all accusations, and called Boris's claims about Putin shocking and unforgivable. Royal Navy hero Admiral Lord West warned Daily Star Online the increasing tensions with Russia put war at a real risk. He said while Putin doesn't want a war with NATO, the crisis is becoming extremely dangerous. The former First Sea Lord said, "If we are not careful, we might end up in a nuclear war." Putin's officials have already warned Britain not to threaten a nuclear power after Prime Minister Theresa May issued an ultimatum to the Kremlin.
Britain is to kick out 23 Russian diplomats, the biggest such expulsion since the Cold War, over a chemical attack on a former Russian double agent in England that Prime Minister Theresa May blamed on Moscow and was backed by the United States. May pointed the finger firmly at Russian President Putin on Wednesday as she outlined retaliatory measures in Parliament. Russia denies any involvement in the attack on the ex-spy and his daughter, since they were found on March 4th on a bench in the city of Salisbury. May announced a potential freezing of Russian state assets that pose a security threat, new laws to conquer hostile state activity, and a downgrading of Britain's attendance at the Soccer World Cup in Russia this summer. It goes on further to report that Theresa May had stated the Russians' response demonstrated complete disdain for the gravity of these events. They have treated the use of a military-grade nerve agent in Europe with sarcasm, contempt, and defiance. The only possible conclusion was that the Russian state was behind the attempted murder. This represents an unlawful use of force by the Russian state against the United Kingdom. The Russian Foreign Ministry stated that Moscow would swiftly retaliate against the British measures, which had been undertaken for short-sighted political ends. Britain, which has received statements of support from the United States, the European Union, and NATO, has said it would seek to coordinate an international response to the attack. The White House issued a statement saying it shared Britain's assessment that Russia was responsible and supported May's decision to expel the diplomat as a just response. It was the White House's most unequivocal statement to date, blaming Russia for the poisoning. At the United Nations, U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley blamed Russia for the attack and urged the Security Council to take immediate, concrete measures to address this now. In fact, according to the Washington Examiner, Nikki Haley stated that New York City could be the next site of a chemical assassination attempt if world leaders fail to punish Russia for its alleged role in poisoning of the former spy. She said, if we don't take immediate concrete measures to address this now, Salisbury will not be the last place we see chemical weapons used. They could be used in New York or in cities of any country that sits on this council. This is a defining moment. Haley also stated that time and time again, member states say they oppose the use of chemical weapons under any circumstance. Now, one member stands accused of using chemical weapons on the sovereign soil of another member. The credibility of this council will not survive if we fail to hold Russia accountable. And in a report published by The Sun, Theresa May has warned President Putin the UK will go further if Russia doesn't stop provocations, as many leaders stand together with unprecedented statements. She warned there will be other measures we will be taking, looking at extra powers that we can take in retaliation to hostile state activity. The four powerful world leaders said in a statement, "We, the leaders of France, Germany, the United States, and the United Kingdom, abhor the attack that took place in Salisbury, UK on March 4th, 2018. It goes on further to report the use of a military-grade nerve agent constitutes the first offensive use of a nerve agent in Europe since the Second World War. It is an assault on UK sovereignty, and any such use by a state party is a clear violation of the Chemical Weapons Convention and a breach of international law. It threatens the security of us all." The United Kingdom briefed thoroughly its allies that it was highly likely that Russia was responsible for the attack. Speaking in the White House, President Trump stated, "I spoke with the Prime Minister, and we are in deep discussions. A very sad situation. It certainly looks like the Russians were behind it, something that should never, ever happen." And speaking of the United States, the Chicago Tribune is reporting that the U.S. has imposed sanctions on Russia, accusing Russia of ongoing operation to hack the energy grid. Pushing back harder on Russia, the Trump administration accused Moscow on Thursday of a hacking operation targeting the U.S. energy grid, aviation systems, and other infrastructure, and also imposed sanctions on Russians for alleged interference on the 2016 election. It was the strongest action to date against Russia by the administration. The sanctions list included the 13 Russians indicted last month by special counsel Robert Mueller. U.S. national security officials told the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and intelligence agencies had determined that Russian intelligence and others were behind a broad range of cyber attacks beginning a year ago that had infiltrated the energy, nuclear, commercial, water, aviation, and manufacturing sectors. The officials said the Russian hackers chose their target, obtained access to computer systems, conducted network reconnaissance of systems that control key elements of the U.S. economy, and then attempted to cover their tracks by deleting evidence. The U.S. government has helped the industries kick out the Russians from all systems currently known to to have been penetrated. So much for peaceful relations between the United States and Russia. But what has happened in Britain is pretty serious business as well, and it seems tensions could continue to escalate in the future. And we already know that the United States will stand with Britain, as well as France and Germany. And other nations are sure to follow if tensions continue to soar. But the question is, could it lead to war? Hopefully not, but definitely something to keep our eye on. And speaking of Russia, RT News is reporting that Russian nuclear subs were able to quietly reach the United States coast, and they were able to leave undetected. Here's that report. Russian nuclear-powered submarines conducted an exercise near American military bases with the objective of avoiding detection as they came close to the U.S. coast. The stunning revelation was made in a military TV series set to air on Star. According to a submarine officer filmed in the show, the Navy Command ordered to take position in the vicinity of the U.S. military bases during exercises. He said this mission has been accomplished. The submarines showed up in the set location in the ocean and returned to base. Asked if the submarines had managed to stay off the radar during the mission, he replied, "Yes, this is our objective, to come and go undetected." The Navy commander said the Russian vessels came close enough to American shores but did not violate U.S. maritime borders, remaining in neutral waters. The date and location of the covert mission has not been disclosed, but the channel said the Russian nuclear-powered submarines reached the very coastline of the U.S. With that being said, President Putin has ordered a second high-profile test of the world's most unstoppable nuclear missile, the Satan II, capable of wiping out Britain 3 times over with one blast. The shockingly deadly missile is more than 3,000 times more powerful than the bomb which leveled Hiroshima and is virtually undetectable. As Russia faces condemnation across the planet for the state-sponsored act of terror on the streets of Salisbury, the test is being seen as a clear and hostile message of war to the world. Putin has reacted to evidence Russia ordered the poisoning of a former double agent and his daughter by raising tensions with barely veiled warnings of military action. And the latest is the testing of the terrifying Satan II, formerly known as RS-28, which makes all Russia's existing nukes look like firecrackers. The RS-28 statistics make for frightening reading. A single RS-28 is capable of wiping out an area the size of France or Texas or the entire UK with one blast. It goes on further to read that the RS-28 has an incredibly short launch burn phase, the time U.S. satellites find it easiest to track, and then it basically disappears. Because of its increased trajectory, the Satan II can travel over the South Pole to hit the West rather than shorter North Pole route. This again means it is invisible to U.S. tracking satellites. The RS-28 carries 16 nuclear warheads which can be individually targeted, and a raft of high-tech countermeasures to further avoid detection. And finally, the Satan II packs a 50-megaton nuclear punch. A Royal Navy submarine has started conducting drills in an area of the Arctic Ocean known as Russia's backyard. The nuclear-powered HMS Trenchant burst through 2 feet of ice as it aimed to showcase the power of Britain's military arsenal. The operation is being conducted alongside 2 American subs, the USS Connecticut and the USS Hartford, that appears to display a new era of drills that date back to the Cold War. The captain of the HMS Trenchant stated that the exercises are like dogfighting in an ice jungle. He went on to state that this is a tremendous opportunity to really test our skills. Working alongside the U.S. submarines is great for us. It's like dogfighting in an ice jungle. The drill will test the 3 vessels in a variety of different areas, including the use of sonar technology, and will involve simulated attacks. The commander of the Undersea Warfighting Development Center, James Pitts, explained the U.S. conducts drills in the area every couple of years, but stated that the inclusion of Britain comes at a time where there is a great power competition. He said, "We are well aware that we are in a great power competition environment, and the Arctic is one piece of that. All the more reason why we are practicing up here to make sure that we can operate effectively." It is believed that this is the first time Britain has joined the U.S. in the region for 10 years. UK Defense Secretary Gavin Williamson explained the minus 40 degrees Celsius temperatures in which the operation is taking place marks one of the harshest environments on Earth. He stated the ability of our submarines to operate with our U.S. allies demonstrates how the Navy is always ready to defend our nation anywhere in the world. The emergence of drills come during a time of frightening cold relations between the UK and Russia.